Hello. Today we will be doing a recap on the 2021 film Hypnotic. Be sure to stay around until the end of this video. Let's get right into it. The film starts in an office building late at night. We see a woman called Andrea. She comes across as disturbed and paranoid and calls a detective. However, he doesn't answer. She leaves him a voicemail saying she is nervous and scared and feels like a man is watching her. She makes her way to the lift, still nervous. She gets inside, still nervous, and while going down, she receives a phone call from an unknown number. She answers, and the man says, "This is how the world ends." The phone ends, leaving the girl terrified, and the walls start closing in on her in the elevator as she screams for help. The scene then shifts to a girl called Jenn. She gets dropped off at a party, where her friend Gina opens the door. While at the party, her friends introduced her to Dr. Meade. Her friend explains that he is the best therapist she has ever had. She goes on to explain how magical he is. While talking, she is interrupted and walks off. Jenn is left with Dr. Strange, and they converse for a bit. Then Jenn leaves. Later on, during the party, Jenn is with her friends talking. However, during the conversation, Meade joins in and asks Jenn what she does, and Meade learns she is a really good software engineer. While talking, Jenn stops her friend from eating food as it contains sesame seeds, to which he is allergic. He then leaves his EpiPen because he doesn't like the idea of dying. Towards the end of the night, Meade gives her his business card and leaves. Jenn is outside waiting for her cab. However, her friend is shown to be her ex. His name is Jamie. My man says thanks for saving his life and begins sweet talking. They talk, and he offers her a ride home. She says it's not a good idea. He says Jenn is just a ride home, so yes, they practice making babies. This is shown when he leaves a note when Jenn wakes up. She meets her friend Gina for coffee, and they talk about life. Jenn isn't in a good space, so Gina recommends she go see Dr. Meade for one session. Jenn reluctantly agrees. Jenn goes to his office and finds his waiting room. While sitting, a crazy woman comes out and looks weird. She turns to Jenn and says, "Whatever the problem is, Dr. Meade will fix it." She then orders Jenn to go inside, as he is waiting for you. She goes inside and meets him while he is feeding his fish. He greets her and thanks her for coming in. They sit down, and Jenn explains that she just doesn't feel motivated to do anything. Dr. Meade says there is always a reason behind something, and he asks her about the Jamie. She explains she was engaged, but she had a miscarriage, and after that, they didn't know how to make it work and split up. He puts his notebook down and offers her hypnotherapy. He explains that she is in control of her own mind, and you keep your own power. She doesn't like the idea, but she agrees to try. They start the session with the lights flickering and Meade telling her to relax. She goes into her mind and imagines being in a forest. It goes black. Then she wakes up while the sessions end. She is surprised, as it was an hour, but felt like 3 minutes. She leaves feeling happy. Jamie calls her, but she declines. She meets Gina, and we learn she has been seeing Meade for 3 months, once a week. One day, Jenn is at the mall, where Meade bumps into her. She gets happy and tells him she got the job. Meade acts happy and offers to buy her a coffee. She accepts. They sit and talk, and Jenn tries to pick apart Meade and tries to guess what he's like. He laughs, and we learn that he is 46 and has been married to his wife, Amy. She died, however, and he has been alone ever since. He asks her about Jamie, but Jenn says she hasn't spoken to him. Meade recommends meeting him. Bring him around for dinner and talk about your problems together, as she is now in a better place. The next scene shows Jenn parking her car outside a grocery store. She hears Jamie's voice saying he will come over. She then gets an unknown call. She stops, and the screen goes black. She regains consciousness and finds herself at home at her dining table. She looks and sees food and hears choking in her bathroom. She walks in and finds Jamie having an allergic reaction. She finds his pen, and he is then taken to the hospital. She meets Gina the next day, and Gina says it's an accident. However, Jenn explains she can't remember what happened. Jenn meets Meade and explains what happened. He questions how Brian is, and she says the same. Meade explains that only she has the power to control her power and concussion, and the point of their sessions is to eliminate fear. He says the moment you stop doing the work, fear wins, and in order to win, she needs to do the work. I know even I wouldn't let myself get gaslighted with those eyes. She then has blurry dreams of her and me being intimate, but then wakes up. She goes to the kitchen, has some water, and throws away her trash. She then looks again and finds the receipt from that day, when she met Brian, and finds bought sesame oil. She then has a flashback of her answering the phone and hearing Meade say to carry the fire. It then shows her using the oil when making the salad, and then him having a reaction while she just sits there. She goes online and looks up Dr. Meade. She finds case files of clients doing things and claiming that they were controlled to do things they didn't remember doing. She meets Gina and explains this to her. Jenn explains that a client a few months ago tried suing her therapist, but ended up dead. Jenn then shows the receipt and explains that Dr. Meade called her and remembered what she did that night to Brian. She explains that she did it on purpose, but says it wasn't her who did it. Something controlled her. Gina believes her. They go meet Detective Wade and ask him about Andrea. Wade hesitates and questions what they want to know, as they state she died of a heart attack. She was an old client of Dr. Meade. Jenn explains that she has the same therapist and has been experiencing blackouts. Wade cuts her off and explains that he knows, as Andrea came to him and explained the same thing. He goes on to explain that he tried to look into it because he felt something was off about her death. He says he tried to investigate deeper, but they shut the case down and didn't give him a chance. He then shows the elevator footage we see at the start of the film, and we learn it was all in her head. He stated she received a phone call from a blocked number and then had a large shake, then died due to high blood pressure. The amazing detective gives Jenn the smartest advice and says, "You should get a different therapist." Jenn and Gina leave the police station, but just before they leave, Gina gives a worried look, saying she let Meade hypnotize her during the beginning of the week. Jenn hugs her and says, "Don't worry, everything will okay." Jenn then books another appointment with Meade. While waiting, she starts a secret recording. She goes in and places the phone in her bag. Meade asks why she came in, and she nervously talks and says Jamie still hasn't woken up, and she needs that hypnosis. "You know what I'm saying, baby?" Meade says okay, and they start. When she leaves, she looks at the recording and finds out that Meade started asking her questions. He asks her why she came, and under hypnosis, she explains everything and pretty much lets him know she is onto him and admits that she knows about Andrea. This creeps Jenn out and gets GTFO out of there. Gina is in the car with her boyfriend on the way to work when Jenn calls. She answers and tells Gina to drive back home right away and meet her there. Gina says she needs to go to work, but she gets a call from an unknown number. She cuts Jenn off and answers. It's Meade. He asks if she can talk, but Gina says she's in the car with her boyfriend. He says even better, this is how the world ends, and hangs up. Gina then sees a spider on her, and she panics. Her boyfriend tells her to relax and explains. However, because she is a woman and they can't drive, she decides to speed up. The man tells her to slow down, but they end up getting hit by a truck and dying. Meade is in his office now, chilling, but his doorbell rings. He opens the door, and it's Detective Wade. Meade invites him in for a drink. While inside, Wade comes inside and informs him that Gina and her boyfriend died today in a car accident. Meade acts devastated while Wade sneakily collects a spoon with Meade's fingerprints. He sits down and questions him about Gina and Andrea. Wade then goes on to explain that there is a pattern, as all 3 patients he has performed hypnosis on have all ended up dying, and he only performs hypnosis on a few of his patients. Meade explains the reason why he is here and says he would like to go home now. Wade excuses himself, and Meade offers to perform hypnosis to help with his insomnia. Wade intelligently declines the offer. Jenn is at home and gets a knock at her door. It's Wade, and she comes in and they talk. Wade explains that Meade is smart and tells her he is going to run some prints to try to find something. He gives her Andrea's file. On his way out, he tells Jenn to lay low and look after herself, and then he leaves. She sits down and looks at Andrea, but gets another knock. She thinks he's the detective, but it's my man. She tries to close the door, but he keeps it open. She runs in, and he makes her stop. He comes in and explains that she is ungrateful and that he is helping her. He teases her and says it's almost over. He will take care of the detective. He lets her go and leaves. She tries to call Wade, but it goes to voicemail. Wade arrives home and puts his phone on charge. He sits down and eats. However, he hears a noise. He goes around his house and investigates, but doesn't find anything. He goes back to watching TV. However, that crazy woman comes out of hiding and approaches him from behind. She gets close and stabs Wade. They get into a fight. She stabs him again and bites him, but Wade overpowers her and kills the bitch. The next day, Jenn sees Wade at the hospital, and they explain to each other what happened. Jenn says to Wade to get a hypnotist verified by the police to try and get her to recall what Meade said during his sessions. Wade says using that in court would not be realistic. She says it's worth a try because they haven't got much. Jenn goes to meet a nice-looking hypnotist and shows her the previous voice recording. She explains to Jenn that hypnotherapy is a very powerful tool and can be used for good or for bad. Jenn explains that she is nervous, but she takes part. They begin, and Jenn goes into her hypocritical state. Jenn scatters out, wakes up in a forest, and sees visions of the house of a man called Sullivan, who Meade previously mentioned was his mentor. She then sees a vision of her and Meade sitting down together being romantic, and he hands her a gift. It's a bracelet he hands her and kisses. She wakes up, asking the hypnotist what happened, and she is shocked. She explains that she has never seen this before, and it's as if he put a lock on you, explaining that she can't do what we tried on you. Otherwise, she scats out pretty much. Jenn recalls, addresses, and writes it down. Before Jenn leaves, the hypnotist says she will leave her own mark. She agrees. Jenn researches the address online and finds out about Meade's mentor, Sullivan. She calls Wade, explains what she found, goes to the address, and bangs on his door. After no answer, she walks in. She finds a picture of Meade with his ex-wife, and then Meade appears. He explains that Sullivan was dead and that he left him the house when he died. While Jenn is confused, he sends her to sleep. While Wade is at the hospital, he gets a phone call from his office saying the prints belong to Sullivan. Wade confusedly calls Jenn, but goes straight to voicemail. He gets worried and exits himself. She wakes up, calls Wade back, and tells him he is at her office. Wade calls in the unit and drives to the office as fast as possible. Meade appears and explains how similar Jenn is to Meade's wife. He taunts her while Jenn waits for the officers to arrive. The team arrives and goes up the building. Meade then tells Jenn she can wake up now, and she wakes up at Sullivan's house dressed up in red dress. The team breaks in and finds his office empty. Wade gets told this and works out that she has to be at Sullivan's house, so he diverts. While at Sullivan's, Jenn explains she can't move. Jenn then understands all of her visions were with Meade and her ex-wife, were memories he put in her. He then touches up and does her makeup, which explains that he plans to hypnotize Jenn and make her believe she is his wife so he can replace her. He gives her a bracelet he gave his wife for his anniversary. While talking, Wade walks in and slams the door, making Meade hide and controlling Jenn, making her not let go. She screams, telling him to watch out as he runs out the back. While he looks around, the lights go out. Meade attacks Wade and fights. Jenn breaks free and tries to help. While Meade is on top of Wade, she gets his gun and shoots at them. She wakes up on the sofa next to Wade, telling her to relax and hugs her. The scene then cuts back to the hypnotist and leaves her mark, saying that every time he casts a spell on Jenn, saying, "My love," this will be blocked, and everything she sees will be as it is. She then gets pissed off and tells Meade she is not her love and bangs him in the face. She runs and finds Wade on the chair, on the verge of death. Meade comes from behind, but Jenn shoots him, finally killing him. Wade then tells her, "Yo, you shot me." 1 month later, Jenn is doing well in her office and goes to meet Jamie, who, by the way, has still been in a coma this whole time. She apologizes and says she will be right there when he wakes up. She meets Wade and congratulates him on getting promoted. He then gives her a gift. She leaves and opens it, showing a CD for better sleep hypnosis. Yeah, my man Wade got jokes. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications for more. We will see you on the next one.